Hey everybody, welcome to the YouTube channel, Stone Sizzle. And today we're going to be talking about helping us in the beginning process of finding domain and range of relations. And today in class, if you remember, we talked about some magical word like infinity. So let's identify our infinities up here, please. So first, in the negative direction of our x's, this way is negative infinity. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. This direction over here, we are getting larger and larger. So this is positive infinity. So if we look at our y values, the positive is up here and our negative is down here. As we get smaller in the y direction, we get negative infinity, larger in the y direction, positive infinity. So let's use our domain and range finder and find out our highest and lowest x. We'll start with our lowest x. So we go from left to right. As we're moving the ruler across, we can see that we hit the graph right there. So that means that's going to be the lowest x that this is defined for. So we want to write in there our lowest x is, you can see negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Negative 3 is the lowest x. If we continue to move our domain and range finder to our highest x, we keep going, we go, and a lot of you might think it's here at 4. But remember, I'm going to move my domain and range finder out of the way. What this arrow means it continues, this graph continues to go up. And if you also notice, as it's going up, the x values are continuing to increase. So this is going to go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So what is our highest x? Are we ever going to get a highest x? And the answer is no. So like I told you in class, we're going to say not available. But I also told you to use that idea of infinity. So since this is going to continue to grow up in the y direction, but we're concerned about the x direction. So it's going to continue to go this way as well. We're going to use infinity as our highest x. Okay? So now let's look at our y values. So here we have our handy dandy, trusty dusty domain and range finder. Hopefully you brought yours home. Yours looks a little different than mine. Mine's a clear ruler. Yours is a piece of paper that says domain and range finder on it. So we go from the bottom and we work until we find that first y. And we hit the graph right there. So it looks like our lowest y is going to be negative 4. We continue to move that. We look, we're hitting the graph each time. The graph, the domain and range finder is going through the graph, going through it. A lot of us may think, up right here, our highest is 5. But recall, this arrow that was on the end of that relation, or this particular function, is going to continue to go up. So it's going to continue to go and go and go and go and go forever and ever and ever. So what is our highest y? Well, it's not available. We don't have a highest y. And we're also going to write infinity there. So again, we're not going to turn it into domain and range yet, but we are in the process of starting that concept. Let's go to another one. All right. Again, the first thing I'm going to do, and we tried to do this in class today, is, let me get my domain and range finder going the right direction here. All right. We are labeling. Let's label our infinities. Remember, this is our negative infinity in the x direction, our positive infinity in the x direction, and in our y's, we have positive infinity, and down here, negative infinity. So let's look and see if we can determine the highest and lowest x values for these guys. So I'm just going to go back for a second and do this. Let's see if I can do this. Just to make life easier for all of us. Oh, look how cool that is. There it is. Magic. So here we go. Our lowest x. Boom. We might think, okay, right here, negative 2, because that's where the graph is. But remember, that arrow here indicates that it goes on forever and ever and ever. It's going up, but it's also going in this direction, in the negative direction. It keeps on going. If you can see, my x's are getting smaller as this continues to go, and I can trace that on forever and ever. While we're here, we might as well look at the bottom too. Look at that. It's also going on forever and ever and ever. So what is my lowest x going to be? Well, if you think it's going to be, all these values are going to be defined for this function. All these values of x. It's going to keep going all the way. My goodness, we're not going to have a lowest x. So it's going to be NA, not available. But I also told you to write negative infinity. And that'll help us when we get to doing the domain and range. As we move along this way, oh, is it 2? Well, we know that the answer is it's not 2 because of the arrow indicating this function continues to decrease smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's also going, as x increases, my y is decreasing, so this is going to keep on going and going and going and going. I know this is a very difficult concept to comprehend, this infinity and negative infinity, but if you see those arrows, you understand that we're not going to be able to pick an x that would be the highest. So we're going to say NA again, in order to make that infinity. Okay? I'm going to go back for a second to copy my lowest and highest y. I really like that I was able to do that. And right there. And we're going to turn over our handy dandy trusty dusty domain and range finder. So we're not going to be up here, we start at the bottom. Now, where's the bottom? Well, I can continue to go off the screen because the bottom, because that arrow is way, actually, I'll never get to it. So we could spend the rest of our lifetime trying to find the bottom of this, and we will not be able to. So what do you think our lowest y is going to be? Think about it in your head. Don't just watch. I'm hoping you thought, like, NA, there is not going to be a lowest y, or we can use our negative infinity to indicate that. And then as we trace our graph up, as we go up the elevator along our y-axis, we continue to go. Just because the coordinate plane ends here doesn't mean our graph ends here. It keeps going, and we can go right up the screen. Oops, what happened to my domain and range finder? There it goes, see it? And it keeps on going. So again, not available, and we're going to use infinity because that's where it's headed. Okay? How are we feeling about that? Hoping we get a little better understanding, especially if you're looking at your homework and working along your homework with that. Try this last one. Again, I'm going to label my infinities, my negative and positive infinities. So here's my negative infinity, right, because it's this way in the x direction. It's getting very, very small. And then this way in the x direction, it's getting very, very large. And then along the y, going down, it's going to get very, very small in the y direction, very, very large in the y direction. So let's pick our highest and lowest x. Let's switch our domain and range finder. I love this little tool. It can be used for more than just measuring things, huh? This little guy. So here we go. We're going across, starting from left to right, going from left to right. Boom. We hit the graph at 1, but I think by now we realize that 1 is not our lowest x. Since we have this arrow, and it does look like it's going straight up. Doesn't it look like it's going straight up? And it looks like, well, it's still never going to be. Well, and we do have functions that are known as asymptotic, not to confuse you with a large word there. And in this case, we're not going to need to know that. We're not pretending this is asymptotic. We don't know anything. We're going to pretend that it goes on forever up, but also as it goes, it's going to be covering some x values as well. So it's going out a little bit, and it's going to keep going. But even though it looks like it's so minimal, just a little bit, you got to think this is going on forever and ever and ever and ever. So this lowest x is going to be not available. Excuse the bell. And we're going to say, since it's going to be going in this direction, negative infinity, because these x's are going to continue to go as this graph goes up and up and up. Let's see what our highest x is. So as we keep moving along, bam, we hit 3. All right, there's no arrow there. It's an open circle, which we'll talk about later. So we're going to pick our highest x as 3. Hoping this is becoming easier for you to kind of understand and comprehend. Whoops, now let's switch our domain and range finder. Have a little difficulties with that. There we go. So here we go. So we're going up. Should be a little bit more level here. But you understand. Up. Hits. Where does that lowest? Sorry, I'm just copying. Next time I'll be better prepared. There we go. What's our lowest y going to be then? Right along here, it looks like it's going to be negative 1 is our lowest y. Great. So we keep on going, and I think this one's going to be a little easy for us now. We keep on going up along the graph, along the y-axis going. You can see it's still defining, all those values of y are defined, and it keeps on going until my domain and range finder disappears. So what do you think? That arrow, what do you think our highest y is going to be? It's going to be not available. But we're going to mark it as Infinity as well. Okay? So I hope this video helps you out a little bit as you're doing your homework, as you're working on your homework. Be prepared. I don't see you again until Tuesday to kind of do some of this. So I hope that you watch it over again and can make the connections to the homework. All right? Have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Johnstone out.